Hi, my name is Tiffany Higgins, and today I was speaking to you about collecting behavior data. There are many different methods in which you can use to collect behavior data. Some are task analysis, which are the detailed observations and recordings of a behavior occurrence to gauge the progress and identify areas for interventions. Scatter plot analysis, which is the behavior data points that are plotted on a graph to show over time the relationship between the behavior that occurs and the time interval that it occurs. Frequency or event and rate recording. This involves the counting of how many times a behavior occurs within a certain time frame. This is great for determining how often a particular behavior occurs within a classroom. Duration recording, that can track how long that particular behavior lasts, such as a tantrum, how long from the start of the tantrum to the end of the tantrum. And this can be done by simply turning on a timer and then letting it essentially play out. Latency recording. This tracks how long it takes for a behavior to start after an instruction is given. So for instance, if you ask a student to take out their book to do page 38, let's say, and it takes them 5 minutes to do so, that was the latency recording. It took 5 minutes for student to take out book to get started on work is what you would record. The ABC data, the word, I think this is how you say it because I've been struggling with this one, is antecedent, behavior, and consequence data. This tracks what happens before, during, and after a behavior episode occurs. So the before is what triggered it. During is the actual behavior, what the behavior looked like. After, the consequences that were given for that said behavior or act, and whether or not those consequences help prevent the behavior from occurring again or it made it worse. Essentially is what you're recording with that one. Interval recording, which is dividing a time period into smaller chunks to track behavior over a certain period of time. Time sampling, which is observing behaviors at specific intervals during a longer period of time. There are 3 that I personally like. There are also more that you can use, such as Class Dojo for rewards, as well as taking away points or behavior sheets. Those kind of things also are essentially recording of behavior data. But 3 out of the ones that I mentioned prior that I find to be beneficial are the one I struggle to say, the antecedent, behavior, consequence, or the ABC data. Can help you track what triggered that behavior. And that helps you find out exactly why the student then had a meltdown, what happened during that meltdown, and the consequences afterwards. So that helps you see the cause and effect of different things, because it could be something as small as a student forgot their book bag on the bus, and that has sent a catalyst for whatever comes next. Somebody bumped into them, and so now they're upset because they were already upset. So even though the bumping into them caused the actual meltdown, what triggered all of this occurrence was leaving the book bag on the bus. Another one is the duration recording, because it can be helpful to track how long a tantrum actually lasts. So with this tool, you can use it to help form a plan with the student to say, hey, yesterday you had a tantrum and it lasted about 5 minutes. So if something happens today, let's try to get ourselves together in less than 5 minutes. And you can put a timer in front of the student so they can be able to see. So they know, hey, I'm getting close to that mark and I want to do better. Because they all want to do better. Nobody wants to have an attitude all the time. The other one I thought was helpful, and it can be used with technology, is a scatter plot analysis, because that gives you points to plot on a graph to show over a period of time the behaviors and when they occurred. So then you would have graphing points to show, hey, this student tends to have more behavior outbursts before lunch. So it could be a hunger thing. So then you can start correlating that information that's on there to say, let's figure out what's happening in that instant. What occurs at the same time this in the day as to why the student continues to have these outbursts in that particular point in the day. And that can be done with a Catalyst app. So that's a simple app you could use on your phone in order to help with that information. So sometimes there are things that influence our behavior data, which could be a bias. If you already feel some kind of way about a particular student, then you might have a bias going in, as if you're looking for them to have a bad day when they may not necessarily be it. You know what I'm saying? Another one could be inconsistent observations. So if you aren't consistently documenting if the student, when the student has an outburst and what triggered that outburst, then your data is going to be all over the place. Same thing if you're observing, but then somebody else comes in and analyzes your information without knowing any other information. So then you could also have the data be kind of off at that point as well. A good thing to do in these cases are to collaborate with families. So when you're collaborating with families, they can see, as a student can see, that both of you or all of you are on the same page. And it also helps you go, well, we're having this issue when this student happens, when A, B, and C happens here at school. Do you also have that issue at home? And the parent can say yes or no. And if they are having that issue, how do you handle it at home? Because maybe we need to be doing the same thing. For instance, I had a student who would act out and become violent towards others when he wasn't doing well on assignments. So if he didn't get 100, he felt that he wasn't doing well. And so he would act out. And therefore he would take it out on others. Well, I asked his mother about that, and she said that when that happens, she pulls him to the side and they do a slight meditation where they sit over and he takes like a 5-minute meditation. So I started implementing that in class. I gave him an iPad, put it on the kids meditation that's on YouTube, put a timer and said, here we go. And he would sit over there and he would take his time and he would do it. And then it got to the point where he was like, I need a moment. Can I get the iPad? And he would get the iPad and he would take it over there by himself and he would meditate. But I would have never known that had I not collaborated with his family. Another thing is setting goals with the family as well. So if a student takes home 3 out of 5 days of a happy face, then the family could reward them. Or if the student does their homework or reads for a certain amount of time at home, then you can do the reward at school. It's essentially just working hand in hand with the student and the family to show that you care about them as a person as a whole, and not just how they act in your class, but how they act, period, everywhere. Because that is essentially what we're doing. We are creating the future of what we would like to see. And honestly, that's an important thing, and not just how they behave in class, but how they behave in life. So some of the differences in behavior data collecting that I noticed are in preschool through, birth through preschool classes. Data collection is more so of, hey, Timmy didn't bite today. Yay, Timmy. As well as James used to be potty trained, but now we're reverting back to wetting ourselves in the middle of the day when we're awake. So that could also be used to determine, hey, we might need to get him tested and observed for additional things such as autism. In kindergarten through 3rd grade, there are usually already IEPs, which is individual education plans, already in place for these students. So behavior has already been documented that they might have some behavioral things that are going on, and this is what might occur, and this is how they are meant to handle it. And so when you have those, you essentially follow the IEP. Honestly, you just follow what's in the IEP. If the IEP says give them 10 minutes to themselves, then you give them 10 minutes to themselves. It also can show, even if there's not a behavioral portion on it, it can show that the student might have a learning disability, which after doing research can show that there is some sort of something going on. And also in the K through 3 classes, it's more of a behavior wise of the student is acting out or throwing things, hitting people, things of that nature, refusing to do work, things like that, as opposed to in a birth or like a 6-week-old class. You're not saying that the 6-week-old isn't doing work. It's more so of he's sleeping. And so, as I mentioned before with the IEPs, those students that don't have IEPs, collecting data for them can be more difficult because there isn't already a blueprint to show you what exactly is going on or what to expect. And also there might be underlying causes such as anxiety that isn't documented in an IEP or just knowledge in general. So things kind of get a little confusing sometimes, but you just continue to do it. Just continue to work at it and continue to document. When documenting and observing, as long as you keep it organized, you'll be able to figure it out. And then you can always speak to somebody and say, hey, this is what I've noticed over this period of time. And then they would be able to look at what you have and say, I agree that this is what's going on. So let's figure something out. And thus you can create individual classroom management plans for students. So that is all I have for you, but I hope that this was extremely helpful. And as educators, we're trying our best. We're doing our best. So continue to do your best. Continue to keep learning. Continue to keep teaching. They need us. We need them. Trust me, it gets easier.